Hey everyone, welcome to Beginnings, the show that asks, where do creative people come from? My name is Andy. I'm the host of the show and a writer and performer based in Los Angeles, California. I am in the apartment alone. Naomi is on the road for a couple days doing stand-up, and it's just me and the cats and Mabel. And Mabel is growling at something unseen outside, and that's unnerving. Got the heebie-jeebies. Yes, getting used to a dog who does things like that, who can sense things outside, like animals. So here's the thing. We moved to Los Feliz a couple months ago. In the time since we moved here, it's basically become an open-air homeless shelter. And I don't know if Mabel is just growling at a person outside, at a coyote, at a possum, at a malevolent person who is casing the joint. So that's where I am right now. By the way, what a wonderful episode today. This is Cara, Beth, Satalino. If you don't know who Cara, Beth is, why don't I read you her bio right now? Originally from the small rural town of Pittstown, New York, Cara has been playing music since she was young. She moved to Athens, Georgia after college and formed the band Witches, a fantastic punk trio which put out 2 7-inches and a full-length record, named Forever. And a few years later, formed the band Outer Spaces. As Outer Spaces, Cara's written a number of EPs as well as 2 LPs, 2016's A Shedding Snake, and her latest, Gazing Globe, which was released earlier in the summer on Western Vinyl. I heard it, I really thought it was great, and I found out she was coming through Los Angeles. And she was able to come over. I think it was the first thing she did. She drove into Los Angeles and came right here. And really interesting talk about growing up in a very small rural town and what that meant, especially if you're a introvert. We talk a lot about that kind of stuff. Very interesting. And if you don't know, if you haven't heard Outer Spaces, I think I'm going to play a song of theirs right before the interview so you can get a feel for her music, which I think is just wonderful. By the way, if this is your first time listening to Beginnings, thank you so much for checking the show out. If you'd like to check out other episodes, you can get them all on Spotify, and you can download them all at beginnings.libsyn.com. And if you want some recommendations, why, I can give them to you. You know, I've talked to writers and artists and actors and comedians and directors and tons of people in all manner of creative fields. But if you're here because you love musicians, maybe you'd be interested in other episodes that feature musicians. I've talked to Matt Sharp from Weezer and the Rentals, Will Cullen Hart of Olivia Tremor Control, Cassie Ramone from the Vivian Girls, Sadie Dupuis of Speedy Ortiz, Colin Newman from Wire. What else? Black Belt Eagle Scout, The Blow, Colleen Green, Anna Waronker of That Dog, Dean Wareham from Luna and Galaxy 500, Ellen Kepner of Palehound. Last episode was Vagabond. Check those out. If you like what you hear and you want to subscribe, you can do that on Stitcher, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on Google Play, and a bunch of other places, I'm sure. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Andy Beckerman. Stay tuned. A lot of great episodes coming up, including Magdalene Visaggio, a wonderful comics writer, Patrick Stickles from Titus Andronicus, Michael Cronin, I just talked to him. Who else? Josh Siegel, who is a wonderful TV writer, has written for a number of shows from 30 Rock to Kimmy Schmidt to The Good Place. And that was a really great talk. So stay tuned for those. But now, I'm going to play you Teapot Number 2 by Outer Spaces, and then my talk with Cara Beth.
Strumming my guitar, I get a strange and fleeting feeling. I may exist
beginning. There's something like way too vulnerable about having to like mess with this thing with a person like standing there, staring at you.
Yeah.
That I've been doing the show for almost 10 years and I'm still not used to like that kind of, I don't know what it is. I don't know why it feels vulnerable to have someone just sit there waiting for you to like monkey with some faders.
It's like doing the line check instead of the sound check. Everyone's already in the room and you're like trying to figure things out. It's nerve-wracking.
Is that it? Is that there's a moment of it's this anxious moment where you have to like think through everything very quickly.
Yeah.
While someone is there.
You feel time in a different way when people are just waiting for you to do something.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's it. It's
seconds go by like minutes.
Yeah. It's the slowest time. Like time, I'm 40 now and time feels really fast. Like everything feels I saw the date was yesterday was July 24th and I had a little existential freak out.
You're like, what? Summer's over already. I thought, I'm 35, so I'm getting up there too. But
35 didn't do much. It was 38 and 39. 40 actually didn't do anything.
Do you just start rounding up or something?
No, I don't know what it was. But like those were the years like towards my birthdays, and both 38 and 39 is when like my brain started to like really freak out. At 40, it was nothing. It was okay, fine. This is nothing.
Yeah.
It was I don't know what it is about 38 and 39. And same thing happened when I was 33.
I felt that when I was in my late 20s, I was like, oh God, I might as well be 30 already. And then when I was 30, I was like, whatever. I'd already like come to terms with it. But if I could go back and see myself at 27 again, I'd be like, you've got so much life to live.
I mean, look, if things go well, I still got my entire life, another one of my entire life so far ahead of me. So
right. That's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah. But if I want to feel like it's slowing down, I just have to have people waiting for me all the time.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's the key.
Yeah.
35. You are from Pittstown, New York. Is that right?
Pittstown, New York. Yeah.
Not to leap right in. But
it's a very rural town between Troy, New York and Bennington, Vermont.
Yeah, upstate New York.
Yeah, like at that corner of New York where it kind of hits Vermont and Massachusetts. So,
because I was thinking about this last night, and I looked on Wikipedia. It's a town of about 5,000 people, roughly.
500.
500.
Yeah, it's real small.
Wikipedia is wrong.
I think it's wrong because it's really like Pittstown is one tiny town, and then there's a bazillion little tiny towns around there. You could really think of it as one larger thing, but
a conglomerate.
Yeah.
So 500. That's what I first thought about because I read that somewhere, and then I looked up on Wikipedia and they said 5,000. I'm like, either way, it's a small, but 500.
Small as heck.
I mean, that's a order of magnitude of 10. So 500 is even smaller. Yeah.
In fact, there's a funny sign that someone put up that says Pittstown, home of 500 people and a few grumps. Or something like that. I don't know if it's still up there, but...
Now, okay, when I hear that makes me think of that that's the character of the town. Is that true? Like, we're just down, we've got a funny sense of humor here.
I don't know. It's like, it was very... it was really small. Lots of... extreme poverty as well up there because it's like, I live on a dirt road. There's not much of an economy up there. It's pretty far from Albany would be the closest city, which was like 45 minutes to an hour away. It ran the gamut of like a variety of types of people from different classes, but pretty much mostly just white people. Yeah.
Was there ever an economy and that just went south at some point, or was it always this kind of like... No, I don't think
so. It was pretty rural, like maybe farming. But yeah.
Because upstate New York, or like which to me are a stand-in for all small rural places, just the closest to. I'm from Pennsylvania, and so and the middle-ish of Pennsylvania, so not like from. So I kind of understand like the small rural areas. In a way.
Yeah, Pennsylvania's got a lot of that.
Yeah. But that's just like those places, upstate New York and like Pennsyltucky, which is what they call the middle.
Right.
To me, are like a stand-in for everything going on in the United States. Yeah. So, do you think you had like a front row seat to where we were headed in some way?
No, I don't. I definitely don't. No, and I haven't lived there in a long time. I think it's changed a lot. I've been thinking about this a lot because it seems to be more conservative than I remember. And a lot of more Trump supporters types, popping up. But then again, maybe I was just in a bubble. My parents are pretty liberal people. So maybe I just didn't realize, at the time. And now things are, things seem to have changed. But I don't know if it's just that I didn't take stock of what things were happening in my community as much as I might be now or something. I don't know.
I think a lot of that stuff was either hidden or unrealized, whatever that means. Like people were not thinking about, when I was a kid, definitely, I'm from Reading, Pennsylvania. It was definitely pretty conservative. I remember in 4th grade, we did a poll. This was around the Bush Dukakis elections. So 88, I must have been. And is that right? 4th grade, whenever it was. And I think like in our classroom, again, you're a kid. You just vote whatever your parents are going.
Yeah.
Voting. You don't have any I had no clue who Dukakis was when I was 8 years old, but Bush won by, I think 2 people in my class voted for Dukakis. So 2 people had Democrat parents. Yeah. And everyone else was voting for Bush. I don't know if there was any kind of like real conservative allegiance or everyone was just like, yeah, we vote for the conservative.
Yeah.
We vote for the Republican. But it wasn't virulent until lately. It was like whatever that conservatism was, it wasn't like the virulent strain that's come out in the last like 15, 20 years.
Right.
Since Bush the second.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I always thought like New York State was, in general, was, it's a blue state, but it seems like the upstate world it seems like it's leaning the other way a little bit these days. But maybe people are just more outspoken about it, you see the Trump signs everywhere. And
I think it became like a brand or at some point.
Yeah, somehow it's also a brand for like country living. Yeah. Which doesn't make any sense to me, but you also see a lot of like every once in a while, the occasional like Confederate flag flying. You're like, you're in upstate New York. What are you talking? Like, what?
I never understood. I was I was traveling from New York to Detroit, and we were driving, and we stopped at a truck stop in Ohio, and I want to say half the shirts had Confederate flags on them. Yeah. Again, these things just become like emblematic for some kind of like rural distaste with like
it's so
big city.
It's so funny.
Liberals.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up. In reality, I was only like 3.5 hours from New York City, but a lot of the sentiment among a lot of people at my high school or in my town was that like, oh, we don't go, like they were afraid to go into the big city. So it was I didn't know a lot of people who'd even gone. Isn't that weird? It's like, the greatest city on earth, like
so 3 hours away. How do your parents end up there?
Well, they grew up in the area. They're both, my dad's from Albany. My mom's from like Colony, which is like a suburb outside of Albany.
It's called Colony?
Colony. Yeah.
Like literally
Colony.
like it was a colony.
There's a lot of funny names up there. Colony, but with an I-E.
Oh, okay. I was thinking like the Brits came over and we're just like, we're sick of naming stuff. Yeah. What is this? We're in a colony? Just name it Colony.
Yeah. There's some good names up there. Because, well, it's a lot of like Dutch. Mm-hmm. Dutch names, so yeah.
Right, that would have made more sense if I remembered that the Dutch are the ones that settled New York mostly.
Yeah, But yeah, they grew up in a more, well, my dad grew up in a pretty urban environment, I suppose, but because he's from like Albany City, and then I think they kind of romanticized like living in the country a bit, and yeah, and then yeah, we grew up there. They lived there. They live in Troy now, so I don't go to Pittstown when I go to visit my parents anymore, but yeah, small town, small high school. Like where I went to high school was like the same place I went to elementary school, middle school, and high school. And my graduating class was less than 100 people. So pretty small public school, but like tiny, you know.
Did you find it claustrophobic?
Well, it depends on what you mean by that word, because like I was literally surrounded by a lot of open space all the time. So in that way, no. But yeah, I wanted to get out because it was hard for me to find people that I had a lot in common with, because it was hard to, and also that's like the internet existed when I was in high school, but I had a dial-up connection that was constantly kicking me off. And, you know, when you grow up in Pittstown, New York, like the connection's pretty bad. So I didn't find out about a lot of music, and the things that I'm interested in now, I didn't find out about till I went to college and met people who had the info for me, you know. But yeah, it's a lot of people are mostly into like jam bands and stuff up there.
Oh boy. So even though you're younger than me, it seems like the way that you grew up was similar to mine.
Similar, yeah.
In the sense of like the internet wasn't until the mid 90s. I didn't have, it wasn't the beginning of what it was.
I didn't know what to do on the internet. Plus, like it literally would take me like 20 minutes to half an hour to get logged on. So yeah.
There was like, I remember I would be able to, I found like bootleg Pavement songs, but they were huge, giant files, and I could download one of them I couldn't really do it at home, but in my physics class, there was like a faster connection. And when we were allowed to use a computer, I could download one Pavement song, put it on a 3.5-inch floppy disk, and then take it home and listen to it once on my parents' computer.
Heck yeah, that's true dedication.
But I found out about music in almost like, Spin Magazine was what I had.
Yeah.
But also like a kind of chain of like, okay, I liked Pavement. That was like my gateway. And then that led me to Silver Jews. And that led me to like, and then what did Dave Berman listen to? And then I connected that, and I would just go to the record store near my house and just order albums and just like hope that I liked it when it arrived.
Yeah.
Or I just wasted my $14.99.
I got a lot of the music. I listened to the radio. There was like a kind of good radio station. And I mean, a lot of this was before like Clear Channel took over. But so there was some good, you know, the radio used to have like good music on it. And I would tape the radio. And my mom was a member of one of those CD clubs. You get like a bunch of CDs for like $1 or something. And so I just listened to whatever I could get my hands on, but it wasn't like, you know, I didn't have music stores to go to. There's like one store in my town. There was the general store, you know. And that was it.
So wait, okay, hold on. Sorry. Let's walk this whole thing back a little.
Yeah.
There was like a 5 and dime, like a
it was like where you'd get gas. We called it the Pittstown store or the country store or whatever. And they for a time they had a pizza thing going on in there. Like you could get pizza. You could also rent movies there. But that's like the only thing in the town. And then there in the town where I went to high school, there was like a bigger like movie rental place, some other things, but you know, nothing. You'd have to go into Troy or Albany to go to a place to buy music or something, you know.
So growing up, so you don't have a steady internet connection.
No,
you're in the kind of like very small area.
Yeah.
Do you think it? And again, you can only know this in hindsight, but like, did it kind of like collapse the way that you thought about the world? Does that make sense? Did it like have a did growing up like that, do you think it limited the way that you could understand the way the world was?
Well, in a lot of ways, yes, because I didn't have in front of me examples of like all different walks of life, because I didn't even have that many neighbors, like, so, and yeah, it was very white community. So yeah, there's a lot about the world that I didn't know until I left home. And even like down to like, what is sushi? Like, I didn't eat sushi till I was like 20. You know?
Yeah.
Like stupid things like that. Like there wasn't anything up there at the time. Maybe that's changed a bit now, but yeah, it's just kind of funny. Like, yeah, I had a limited worldview. I also, though, spent a lot of time alone as a kid. I was alone quite a bit because I'm the youngest of 3, and my parents had jobs, and then they had to commute back home from the city usually, so they weren't home. I'd come home from school and just be by myself a lot because I didn't have a lot of neighbors to hang out, like kids to hang out with and stuff. So I had a lot of time to like kind of, in that way, I had a lot of time to like think about things, but I didn't know maybe I didn't know what to think about yet or something. I don't know. It is an interesting upbringing that I think really shaped who I am in a lot of ways, but
in what way specifically? Just
like growing up as like a loner kid, like not having I am really an introvert, and I like spend a lot of time. I need a lot of time alone, I think, because I've just been used to it.
Yeah. So,
yeah, and I'm very like introspective, I guess, or something.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's I grew up not in a small place. I mean, Reading's it's 80,000 people. It's a fairly large city. But I not a lot of people, I wasn't on the same wavelength as a lot of people. So I did spend a lot of time in my imagination playing on my own.
Yeah.
Do you find it difficult collaborating with people? What I think is interesting is that in music or in TV writing, anything that's like a collaborative medium, you have a lot of people who are used to like doing stuff on their own. My wife's a stand-up, and she's like, she finds it difficult sometimes because she's like, I just want to do the thing I want to do, and I don't want to have to like, I don't want to have to get other people's opinions on it.
Right.
Do you find similar difficulties in collaborating?
I'm not great at collaborating. It does not come naturally to me, and I like playing music with other people, though. There's something nice about it, but I like to be in control of it, and that's why I created Outer Spaces, because I realized that I just want to do what I want to do. Yeah, which I think is fair. I think everybody should have something that they get to be in control of that's creative, but
do you have do you think it manifested this kind of like solitary childhood manifested in control issues in general, or just around like collaborative
that's
projects?
A good question. I don't think that my upbringing is why I'm a control freak, but maybe in some ways it has something to do with it. But I think that's something else. But no, I think it, but it does, maybe it has something to do with the way I wasn't very social as a kid, so I'm not used to that. I guess like any project, rarely have either I've been in other bands where it's someone else's project and I'm just there to help them facilitate their project, and I know my role is not, I like almost not having any, like I'll add to things, but they have the ultimate say whether it happens or not. And then, or I've been in bands where at the end of the day, I was really just the sole songwriter. We weren't like creating, I could never like do lyrics with another person. It would have to be a really special person. I don't know. I can't imagine like writing a song, because I feel like it's really the music I write is pretty personal in some way. I can't imagine like doing that with someone fully. Like I'll bring songs, fully fleshed out songs to a band, and then, you know, someone will add bass to it or something, but it's not like we're really writing together in this certain way that like some bands write together. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. I find the difficulty in how much of my ego is put into something. When I used to be in a band, and me and my friend Kyle, we were like co-songwriters, and I think we would like change each other's lyrics, but I was like so repressed that there was nothing. You'd have to really do a lot of excavating to get to like whatever the real emotion was underneath whatever the lyrics I was writing. So if someone changed it, if Kyle changed it because he was like, well, this word's weird or rhyme is strange or something like that, I don't think I was that attached to it. Yeah. Whereas like when my wife and I write, we're like working on a pilot together now. And there's something like, you know, if I write a joke that I real like, it's like really comes from inside me, and she wants to change it, I like bristle. Or there's like lots of stuff that I bristle. I bristle way more at writing with her than I bristled when I worked with my friend Kyle in music.
I could see that because, I mean, I also make music. Well, my partner Chester is currently playing in the band. He records most of our music. He's an audio engineer. And so, like, we'll get, you know, like, if he is like, I don't like this or that, I'm like, what? Like there's like a little part of me that's takes it personally, and then like an hour later I'm like, you're probably right. Okay.
Yes. There's a lot of like waiting for an hour. Until you can like let a feeling. I found that like the more that I react, like I am reactionary, and that I like. Whatever she says, whatever criticism, if I react immediately, it's never a good reaction. And how about you wait an hour, see how you feel then? That's the ticket. Usually she's right. Yeah. I would say like 70%.
It's hard not to take those things personally, because you're like, especially when you're like assigning your identity to this thing that you do.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's the fact that the closer that I get to actually putting in real emotion and my actual ego into a thing, then criticizing that is in some way criticizing me. Yeah, and that's the problem. Yeah. Yes, but do you think that comes from? Were you praised a lot as a child for whatever? Being good at sports, being a good musician, being a good student, whatever. Did you get a lot of praise from your parents or from authority figures?
I wouldn't say a lot, but my parents were pretty supportive of me in music. But I don't think it was like overly so. And that was the only thing that I think I got praised for. I was never doing sports. I was not an athletic kid. I never did any like, I don't know. I was a good student, but I didn't really care or apply myself that well. I just knew how to bullshit my way through school. And it wasn't hard in like a small public school in upstate New York. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a good question. It's hard to like look back and not to know what really happened and beyond your perspective of what your childhood was, you know? But I would say an encouraging environment. Yeah. My dad's a musician too, so like I think he was pretty into me doing music, you know?
For a living?
I don't know how I think that they believed in me. I mean,
did he make music for a living?
He kind of does, like in a different way. Actually, he probably makes more money at it than I do. But he plays in like bars around on the weekends for like, you know, the kind of thing where you're playing for like 3 or 4 hours and coming home with some money. You know, not like this kind of thing that I'm doing. Not really doing like originals so much. Yeah, but but I don't know. Like, I think it's weird. I kind of just was like, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. And I don't think I really thought about all the things that means at the end of the day. Like, I just was like really naive about pursuing music. And I don't know. I think like it's also like the game has changed a lot since the early 2000s when I started making music. So it's hard to like, I don't know. I think they were, I don't know how they actually feel about it. They would probably, if they were like, oh, following this pipe dream, they might never tell me that. But I think that they're into it. I hope. They probably worry about me too.
I've noticed that I think if you're, I mean, let's just roughly pick an age. 30, when I talk to people on the show, 30 or older at this point. Or 30, let's go with this way of saying it. If you're younger than 30, you have a certain comfortability with the publicity process of music, the way that music has been, that indie rock specifically has become a business in a way that, like, I would say, like, when I was growing up, I disdained this kind of stuff. Not this specifically talking like on this show, but I mean like any kind of like
self-promotion.
Any kind of like self-promotion or any kind of like commercial. If something that I did happen to appeal to a large number of people, great. But like you disdain that kind of stuff. I grew up in this age of irony and this age of disliking commercial success in some way.
Yeah.
It switched over, I think, in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I think the people who are maybe 5 years younger than me were more able to grasp it. That's something that you might want to do is like promote yourself. Like, but yes, you're right. I can relate to that 100% of like just being like, yeah, I don't know. Somebody will come find me in my room while I'm writing songs if they want to, but I'm not going to like, you know, tell the world that they should listen to me or something. Like, I don't know.
Does it embarrass you to do that?
I do have a hard time, like, promoting myself. That's probably the thing I have the hardest time doing. Because it feels really weird to be like, hey, look at me. You know, it just feels weird. But I think I've just realized recently that it's okay to feel good about what you're doing. And it's okay to, it doesn't make you an egomaniac or like a bad person to be like, I'm really proud of what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah. My fear has always been that, and again, this is me only recently, I think being here in Los Angeles and seeing what it takes to, that you have to be kind of self-promoting here.
Yeah.
To get the kinds of things that you actually want. But my fear has always been that is just a slippery slope into being like an egomaniac and being a kind of like shell of a person.
Yeah.
And because the end result always scared me, I was like, well, I'll never even take the first couple steps, because what if the first couple steps I stumbled, I mean, if we're going with this metaphor, I stumbled down the hill into becoming a shell of a person.
Yeah.
And so as long as I never take those first couple steps.
Right.
And then I wonder if it's out of laziness in my case, because I'm like, because once you take the first couple steps, it's like, well, no, you just have to like be mindful of not turning into a piece of shit. You just have to be mindful of not becoming a monster.
Right.
And that takes energy.
Yeah. And I think there was a period of time recently where I was starting to get really bitter, and I actually had to be like, do I want to keep doing this? Because it's not making me happy. Like, I'm feeling like so bitter about like, you know, because I've been doing this for so long and I hadn't just like, it wasn't getting anywhere. And I watch all of my peers and friends like have all these opportunities and just like, what am I doing wrong? Or, you know, like, and just doing a lot of like comparing myself to other people. And then
compare and despair.
Yeah. And then it's just like, oh, why am I doing it? I had to like sit down and literally reevaluate what it was. And then I actually found that I was able to just actually enjoy it more when I just let go of like, I mean, obviously it's not as easy as this, but like letting go of my expectations of what I want, and more good things happen when I think you are just like taking a moment to really realize what you're doing and what you like about it, and enjoying it more rather than trying to make it a means to an end, if that makes sense. Like rushing ahead to like, oh, I want this like success, whatever success means. It's all relative to what's important to you. But
yeah, 100%. It's my fear is always that the commercial aspects will take over, but that's not really the real fear. I think the real fear is that that's all I'll care about. Yeah. There's a way to to make something that means something to you and also has commercial aspects to it that has like
some kind of mass appeal.
Yeah. And it's not about letting that change the music. It's about letting that change you. And as long as you can be like, no, I'm not making something because I know it will be, I'm not making like Britney Spears, whatever. Whatever. Like, I realized that is 20 years too late. Lil Nas X, whatever. Whatever you pick the current popular person,
right?
Ariana Grande. I've read articles. I know what people are listening to.
You're hip. You've got your finger on the pulse of what's going on these days.
Thank you, Cara. It's the, again, I think there's a fear that I'm going to be lazy about this stuff and let it affect me, and then I'll be like, well, what sitcoms are popular? I guess I'll create CBS, a fat husband, gorgeous wife sitcom, like that kind of thing. Or like, Big Bang Theory 2. Whatever the thing that I think.
Naked and Afraid, maybe?
Yeah. The sitcom.
Yeah.
That's actually not a bad idea. Anyway.
Hey, it worked for them.
Anyway, but here's a question. Like, growing up in a small town, like, in my mind, please correct me if this is totally wrong, but like in my mind, you are closer to the actual production of things. Like if there's only one store there, and you're surrounded by like places that are farms or used to be farms, you're very close to like the way things are made. You're closer to seeing like the actual chain of production in some way. Is that true?
No, that's not true. The way things are made, there was a cornfield next to my house for corn. It wasn't like corn that I ate.
Right, you didn't walk over to the field
like
and grab
cow corn or something. I don't know. It didn't feel like it had anything to do with anything that was, you know what I mean? I don't know what they were doing with that corn. Were they selling it to was it feed for dairy cows? Probably, maybe. I don't know. I don't know what it was. There was I guess there was some farm stands that felt like. I also, in the time that I was growing up, we didn't eat a lot of like fresh food or anything, so I didn't feel like I was near anything that was current in any way. I don't know. I feel like cities are closer to where things get made. That's where factories are, and I don't know.
You're closer to, in a city, you're closer to cultural production.
Yeah.
But I don't think, I think you're very far away from farming, unless, in New York, someone coming into like a farmer's market in Union Square or whatever. Every city has like some kind of farmer's market. Like, unless you go there.
I guess there were small farms. Yeah, I can think of there was a dairy farm around. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't feel like it wasn't something that, I think affected me in any way. I wouldn't say so. I don't know.
I guess what I was trying to get at was if you are in any way comfortable with like the economic circumstances of of making music for a living, or like if you got to see, I think I was always like you in a certain way, like naive about the business of things for a very long time. I think I was like sheltered from this stuff growing up in the suburbs. And I wondered if you saw people making things and selling them in front of you, but I guess not.
Not really. Actually, this is like kind of non sequitur, but a funny thing that I remember like trying to like make corn husk dolls out of like the corn from the cornfield, and I like put a chair out by the road and just sat there waiting for someone to drive by. Like someone would drive by and not see me because I was like up by next to like a tree trying to sell my dolls.
Like
that's like my first business venture.
Like a lemonade stand.
Literally no one stopped.
By the way, it's slightly creepy to see a small girl selling.
Yeah, especially like in the time that like Children of the Corn had just come out or something. It's like, buy my corn husk dolls.
So, like in retrospect, what was your life? Okay, you grew up. You didn't have a lot of allies in school. You had a lot of people that thought like you. Did you have friends?
I had friends, but I didn't have a lot. I didn't have a lot of like super close friends, just because there just didn't seem to be a lot of people that. I mean, I didn't know very many other people who played music, and if they did, it wasn't exactly what I was into. I don't know. So you had to like kind of take what you could get. But that being said, I feel like I also did have like a supportive network of like people who were encouraging, teachers and my parents. And so there's that. But yeah, I kind of couldn't wait to get out of there. But at the same time, I enjoyed living there, and it gave me a lot of other rewards, like just being in nature, and that's like an amazing thing that I think I took for granted at the time, that now I'm like, oh God, you had it so good. Living in the city, you're just like, I need some trees, but they're nowhere to be found.
I think there's something about wherever you grew up sets you in a certain way for the rest of your life. I don't know how hard and fast I want to hold on to this rule, but like I feel, even though I grew up in the suburbs, there's something about like my parents are from New York. And so I grew up with this kind of allure of New York, and I didn't feel good until I moved to New York. That's the first time where I'm like, okay, this feels good.
Yeah.
And I wonder if like you growing up there, like you don't feel good unless you're around nature in some way.
I think that is true. And as I get older, the more I'm like, oh, like I wish. I've been thinking about this a lot. Like, I feel like you really can't have both things. Like, you kind of can't. You can't have, like, your social group, like, go into a show, want to go to the coffee shop and see all my buddies, and then, like, also have the beautiful, serene house in the woods. Like, you kind of can't, unless you're some sort of millionaire.
Does it make you feel in between in some way?
Yeah, because if I did move out to the country, no one would ever see me again. I'm that kind of person who's like, I don't keep in touch with people well. I'm not good at making plans because I'm always like, well, I could use this time to like play guitar and write a song or something, like I'm never like, I trying as I get older to be a better friend and reach out more and like and put more effort into social things, because I know that I need to, because I can't just sit around waiting for someone to call me, and if I lived in a if it was made any easier for me to shirk responsibilities in like my social life, then I would just be some weird lady in the woods no one ever heard from again.
So much of this stuff is resonating with me because I actually grew up a very interior person.
Yeah.
And it's been a struggle for most of my life since leaving my parents' house to do all the things that you're saying, like be a good friend, to like it's not like I'm not a good friend, it's that I'm stuck in my head all the time, and it takes a lot of energy for me to like push through to the rest of the world, to be like, oh, I should like text my friend. I almost have to have it on a schedule to be like, okay, I'm going to hang out with this friend this week, and then I'm going to hang out with this friend this week, so that I know to keep getting in touch with them. Otherwise, I'll just like live in my head and just like jump around from like idea to idea in my brain.
And then I'm totally that person who's like, but no one ever invites me to things. But when am I reaching out? And, you know, that's why no one's inviting you to things, because you're never coming to things, or like, you know, like you're not present.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's it. I'm not present. I'm not present enough. There's a few times, and I wonder if like this is something that appeals to you about live performance, because that's the only time I'm present.
Yeah.
And even that's a struggle.
Yeah, it is a struggle. And I actually, it's something that I've been working on in the past 2 or 3 years, where I noticed that like the show's over, you know, in music, like in the kind of music that I'm doing, I'm playing like 30-minute sets. I'm on tour right now just to play 30 minutes a night. You know what I mean? All that work just for 30 minutes. And it's like, well, I better enjoy those 30 minutes and I've been thinking about it a lot, because I noticed that the best musicians, like people who just get it, like it's almost like they get in, people who are really playing like in the pocket and all of that. It's like they can really, you have to be aware of each moment to be able to play that way, I think. And it's almost like mindfulness meditation, because you're just like, if you can experience the moment without rushing ahead. I tend to be like rushing ahead, and especially when you're on stage and you get a little bit of nerves, you just play faster. Yeah. And I'm trying to just be more, and it's that same thing that you were talking about earlier about like, as soon as you have to do some fiddle with something in front of someone, you kind of get like, oh God, like this weird feeling of like, I can't wait for this to be over. It's almost like that. And I'm trying to get rid of that, because nobody, like, if I'm trying to be more comfortable with this natural speed of the songs, and I don't know, and it helps to be at least aware of it has been really helpful. And then you're like, oh, I'm having fun now. Ooh, who knew this could be fun?
Like the thing that like, and again, I think a lot of this stuff is resonating with me, but I don't know if my experience is exactly yours. But like but being interior, being a control freak, be like all this stuff. Who knew that once you actually kind of like relaxed, that you could have fun? Yeah. If you just kind of, again, I hate.
And it's so hard to do that.
It is.
But it's like,
it's a physical metaphor, and I don't know how to like. This has been like in my therapy, like. One of the big questions, like, how do you actually, like, we all use physical metaphors for this mental stuff, but it's like, what do you mean let go? I think it's just like relax. Yeah. Whatever. And then I think there is like a way you can let your body relax. Like, yeah. Like when you actually do that, then you're like, oh, I'm actually having fun here on stage. Yeah, totally. And it's an interesting thing when I'm really like nervous and like tensed out on stage. That's when I make more mistakes, because I'm like, wait, I'm like, wait, do I know the next lyric? What? Like, it just like the moment you let yourself get that tense, everything falls apart. Whereas like if you just are like, it's cool, if I fuck up, then I fuck up, it's no big deal, then you won't fuck up probably, because you're like, well, you might, but that's life. I don't know. Yeah, but like it doesn't mean anything. Like, yeah, like when everything is, when your existence and the existence of the world rides on everything going perfect in your head. There's like a loop. Every fuck up it starts a panic. Yeah, that like then like makes more fuck ups and more, like, and then it's a loop. But like when you're relaxed on stage and you fuck up, it's like, oh, who gives a shit? Like, I've played wrong chords or I've said jokes that suck before. Yeah. In those moments, and I don't care, and then the audience doesn't care. Yeah. A friend of mine who's a comedian, actually based in LA now, he told me like he also was like, we were talking about just like anxiety and performance, and he was saying like, yeah, one day I just realized like, it doesn't even matter. The show doesn't matter. Like, if it goes well or if it goes bad, it doesn't matter. And at the time I was like, okay. And now I'm like, oh, you're right. Like, so many times that I was so like freaked out about a performance. Did it matter? No, it didn't. Like, and I think people will respond to you more if you have like your presence, if it's just all tension.
that's not necessary. That can rub off on other people in this weird way. I don't know.
It's strange because the things that make me a good writer are the things that make me a bad performer.
Yeah.
Like
I think that's probably true for me too.
Like there's a reason why I gravitated towards writing as a thing and perform. Like I've been performing for long enough that I'm like good on stage, but I don't think I'll ever be great on stage. I think that's my own problem, like thing I have to deal with.
Yeah,
and I just don't.
I can relate to that because it's also just like I don't feel like I'm a consistent enough person to be great on stage because I can let if I'm out of sorts in my head, then it's like I can't do it well or something, you know?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and I'm with you there because I much prefer just the creating music, like writing a song, writing anything. That's more fun to me than the performing. Not that performing isn't fun, but it's the creating is what has always been the driving force for me. But
when did music enter your life? Like as a thing that you wanted to do? Instantly,
I feel like.
You said your dad was a musician even when you were a kid, he was playing music? Yeah,
for sure. And I didn't actually start playing music till later in life, like maybe in like 5th grade or something when I started playing the flute. But I remember like writing lyrics and things like that and wanting to be a musician like long before, kind of always just being like, that's what I'm going to be doing before, at like 6. But it just always something I was like, that's just what I'm going to be doing. I don't know why I had that feeling as a kid, but I think if my dad wasn't a musician, I wouldn't have had that feeling, but I always liked music a lot. Yeah, just like instantly.
I mean, are you more patterned after your dad than your mom?
I think I get I'm a lot like my mom in different ways, but I get my creative stuff probably from my dad, for sure. But I also am a lot like my mom in other ways, like I don't know. I feel like I'm a good mix of both, probably, but.
I mean, I don't think anything's linear. I don't think it's like, well, my dad played music, so I do it. Like
my mom's definitely a music lover, but my dad is the musician in the family. Yeah. So I definitely, and I play a little bit like him in some ways. Like he was taught by ear, and even though I went to college for music, reading music was like, I just can remember. I don't know. I just memorize something that I hear, and
that I think is more interesting. I think that the fact that you play in a similar fashion.
Yeah, it's more. It's all by ear. I don't. Even if I know. Even if I. It's like if you learned to read in your 20s, but you had been speaking the language the entire time, you'd be like, well, this is annoying to have to go back and learn this thing I kind of already figured out in this totally different way. But so I never really, like, reading music was like, well, I don't really use it in my daily life. So out the window it goes, and I can just do things by like, what sounds good? I don't know. Does this sound good? Then I'll use it. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. I don't know.
I mean, how do you did your dad write songs of his own, or was he always playing standards?
I've only heard one song that he had written, and it was pretty good. But he taught himself how to play all the instruments that he plays, which are like mandolin, fiddle, guitar. I guess like actually when in the 80s, he got laid off from a job and went to a music store, bought a fiddle for like $500, and then just taught himself how to play the fiddle, which is cool because he was probably in his like late 20s or something. Just like, I want to play the fiddle.
Sure. I mean, what did your parents do for a living when you were growing up?
My dad was a graphic designer for like a company that did made tractors called Troy Built. So he would like design their pamphlets and things like that. And he's a good artist too. Like he's a great, he can draw. But I think he's always more of the music, like he's more into music than art, visual art. And yeah, it's interesting. Like in the recession, that was like one of the first, like if you were in your 50s and you were doing graphic design, you lost your job, he could not find anything again. Cause it was like, well, they just hire like a 21-year-old who knows how to use Photoshop now and can code, and pay them half as much. And so he doesn't do that anymore. But so actually he makes a considerable amount of his income just by playing live music. But yeah, he's playing mostly covers and things like that for a couple different bands.
Because I'm wondering, where did you get not the idea. I think it just happens. You just do it. But like, I'm going to write my own songs. I'm going to make my own music.
It was like the first thing I did either. I didn't learn a lot of covers and things. I just wanted to learn guitar so I could write songs. And yeah, I think I was thinking about this today, but I think like I'm not necessarily in my life great at communicating how I feel about things, and I also often feel like pretty misunderstood in general in life. And I think music and like writing poetry and things was like a way for me to be able to communicate a feeling.
Yeah.
So it was just like, oh, this is how I can actually express myself. And then I felt so relieved when I put it out and was like, cool, I can like express this feeling. And as an angsty teen, who doesn't want that? You know?
It's like I think for what introverted people like us, the ability to sit and craft and being able to like, no, this is what I really mean. And I'm going to sit here and figure it out and figure out the best way to distill it so that other people can understand it. As opposed to like when I talk, I get flustered a lot. Because excuse me, because I'm not articulating the nuance in my brain. I'm not articulating it to other people. Yeah. For whatever reason, either it's like too nuanced. Yeah. I think sometimes in too nuanced a way, or too, or like I just whatever, the depth and breadth of the shit I've read or listened to or whatever is just not the same as other people, and so trying to. And all that stuff has changed me in a way.
Yeah, language can be limiting, You can't always, like, express... Well, I mean, some people are good at expressing themselves that way. But I think, that's why I was instantly drawn to music. Because it's really... You can really... Like, a certain note can make you feel a way, in a different way than... I think it's different. It's different than visual art or something like that, but it's not entirely different. It's hard to like compare the two, but yeah, it's just like emotional. It can be highly dramatic or, and I think that's why I was instantly like, oh, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, the way you said it, like it is instant. There is a thing a song does to me that language, visual art, it doesn't. It just doesn't. That stuff doesn't hit me in the same way music, and it is that kind of like it's almost quantum in a certain sense, in a way that like other things aren't.
Yeah, literature. I don't feel as moved, like actually moved by like visual art, maybe like movies or things. But although like I find it like I'm more like impressed by it, but like not as much like, oh, I'm really like in my feelings over this or something,
So I wonder if there's something about like for people who are interior like us, if the instantaneousness and the way that it encapsulates the thing you want to say in an instantaneous way, if that's why it's so appealing.
Yeah, it's interesting because it can also be like an assault. Like if you're hearing something you don't want to hear, you're like, this is an assault on my senses. But when's the last time like you saw a piece of art and you felt like, you can just look away, like music, you're like, or like noises, you're like, I have to, this is here. I can't not listen to,
I've never been offended by a film, book, TV show, a piece of a sculpture and a painting as much as I have by certain pieces of music.
Piece of music that you don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, it's interesting.
So wait, what, you said you're a mix of like both parents. What are they like when you were growing up? I mean, you said in general, very encouraging of you, but like as people themselves.
I feel like my dad's the more like funny guy, and my mom's like the person who gets the things done. And she's like more the head of the household, I would say, than my dad. He's like a little more passive, and she's like, we're gonna do this and this and this, and he's like, okay. But yeah, they're both. I feel like, I don't know. Gosh, it's hard to. I don't know. I feel like I don't want to say too much about it.
Is it because you were an interior kid? Because like I think about that, like I was not keyed into my parents that much, and I find it actually difficult now as an adult because I wasn't keyed into them as a kid, and now that we have to have like an adult relationship, I find that really difficult.
That might be true. I never thought of it that way before, but yes, I have struggled with that too. Just being like, oh wait, now I have to. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Because I think I was always like, I'm going to my room now. Bye.
I mean, is that most of your childhood? Like staying in your room on your own?
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah.
I mean, when did you realize, I mean, it took me into my 20s to realize, I don't like the way that my existence is. I mean, it wasn't bad. I'm just saying like, my brain was like, oh, I could have richer relationships with people if I got out of my head, or I didn't articulate it like that, but like, what was the journey for you to get there?
Well, I also moved to, I think also I'm the youngest, so I don't have the like, I'm a little more free spirited than my older siblings who have closer relationships with my parents than I do. I think because they feel more of they know that they have this responsibility and that I never had or something, or like that I'm like unaware of because I'm the youngest. So I moved away. I moved to Athens, Georgia after college. And I was super broke all the time because no one makes any money down there. And I was like, oh, I can't come home for Christmas. I can't come home for this or that because I don't have any money. And so I was often like, kind of just not being present in my family life. And now I'm like, I really value it. And I realize that was like kind of not cool. My parents never were like, you have to, or they were not that kind of people. They let me do what I'm going to do. But I think I kind of avoided family responsibilities for a long time, or I viewed them as responsibilities rather than now I'm like, gosh, like I have to take more responsibility for how I want this relationship to be. It's not what it's like. I'm 50% of this equation, I have to, if I want it to be a certain way, that's up to me. Really.
Yeah. You used, did you use like saying like I don't have enough money as an excuse, or was it like you really didn't have?
I really didn't. Well, I mean, I could have if I was just prioritizing. Like I'll be like, oh well, I want to use this money to like go on a tour or something. Like I can't afford to. I don't know. I think I probably could have made it work. Looking back, I'm also kind of a cheapskate. So.
Does that come from like, okay, so you grew up? Did you grow up working class?
Oh, yeah. Like, well, I would say we were pretty lower middle class. My mom worked for an insurance company. My dad did the graphic design thing, but for a pretty small company. And then, yeah. So we were middle class, but we were probably on the lower end of that spectrum of what middle class is. And I was or listening to something kind of recently that was like, most people will say they're middle class even when they're not. So maybe we are not. I don't really know.
It is interesting. I think some people, definitely out here, when you ask people what class they grew up as, they will say, people who grew up like very wealthy will say middle class because they're in some way ashamed of growing up with like with their not only all their needs taken care of, but like whatever they wanted was, you know, skiing trips to Aspen, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Whereas I think I feel like I can say genuinely, like, just the dead center of middle class. I had clothes and food whenever I needed clothes or food, but that's about it. I didn't have a car. There were lots of other things I didn't have, and I feel like I'm the only truth teller when it comes to talking about class.
Yeah, well, it's funny, like, kids don't really have jobs now, and I started work. Couldn't wait to start working because I wanted to make some freaking money. I wanted to spend some money and I didn't have any. I had like a $5 allowance or something every week. But so I started working probably in like 8th grade, I think. And I started working at a hardware store, Ace Hardware.
Oh, yeah, nice. I was supermarkets all through high school. Weiss, and then moved on to Pathmark, and then finally the cream of the crop, Giant.
Heck yeah. Working your way up that ladder. Yeah, so... Yeah, and my mom, when I got a job, she was really like, you got to save this money. Like, you shouldn't be like, she taught me to be thrifty, frugal, a little frugal with my money. And it also kind of came naturally to me too. But so, yeah, I'm like, I kind of always was like, I'm okay with not having a lot of, I've never had a lot of money and I've always been pretty okay with it. But as I get older now, I'm like, what am I going to do when I'm old? What is the world going to be like when I'm old?
Yeah.
How will I survive?
Yeah, I think of the same
stuff. That's what worries me these days. But I'll figure it out.
I'm just worried if the world will be here or not.
That's what I'm worried about, too. I have nightmares about it all the time.
Yeah. Wait. Okay, we're at the end. I don't want to end on such a despairing note.
And all right, see you guys. Cool. Good luck.
How about this? Let's end with what was the moment? Again, I'm condensing this, so it's probably not a moment. But like, when did you start feeling like you wanted to actually make music for a living? Like, you're like, I want this to be my career, as opposed to just like your dad who did it on the side. I wanted to.
I think like as soon as I was like maybe 14 or something. That's when I was like, this is what I want to do. I didn't care. Like, I remember, like, I went to SUNY Purchase for music. I really just wanted to go to college to get out of my town. I didn't really understand how else I would do it. And then I didn't understand also that, musicians don't make any money, and I would be like saddled with a lot of student loan debt. I don't know why I didn't make that connection that would be a bad move, but anyway, I just knew that's what I wanted, but I didn't necessarily know how to get there. I thought, I'll just keep writing music and then something cool will happen. And I didn't understand that it takes a little more than just like making the stuff.
Yeah. Because I think most of us grew up with this idea that the world is a meritocracy, or that America is a meritocracy.
Yeah.
It really took me coming out here. I don't think I understood it, like maybe the last year of being in Los Angeles, where I'm like, it's not a meritocracy. It's not even, maybe it's like slightly, maybe like having a talent is like 5 or 10% of the thing, but the rest of it's nepotism. And I'm like, I've been playing the wrong game.
Yeah, it's just about, I don't know what it's about actually, but it's like it's not, I always was like, but I'm working so hard alone in this small cabin in the woods in Georgia where no one's coming to find me and listen to my songs that I'm writing all day, but.
Wait, is that why you went to Athens?
Well, there was a point like at the end of my life there where I lived in like a weird little shack behind another house with no internet. So I wrote tons of music all the time because I had nothing else to do. And it was kind of great for that. I was like excited about that. But it also was like, well, like no one's, what do I want? A medal? Like someone just present me with some like medal for doing this? Like it takes more than just doing the thing, you know?
Yeah.
And then I realized recently that like sometimes you just got to ask for the things you want. You can't wait till someone asks you to do things. You have to just ask.
Yeah. That feels like a good place to end.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
How do you feel? You've been in Los Angeles 15 minutes
15 minutes. Best 15 minutes of my life, honestly.
All right. Well, thanks again. And we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye, oh, 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 bye.